boyfriend versus girlfriend. And what it is basically a conference of parents equals and a continuing relationship.
Well, in simpler terms, are we going to rant about something or are we going to discuss it?
When we rant about something, we're basically of like mind. We agree. When we're discussing things, that's the worst that it happens when we basically disagree about something.
So unlike certain Star Trek versus Star Wars conversations that other people have, no heavy objects end up being tossed around.
Sometimes I find things though. But not you. Our first will be a discussion basically about Superman. It will be where he is kind of on the side of the new Superman movie, Man of Steel. I'm more of basically the style of Superman Returns.
Okay, well, we both went and watched Man of Steel with Henry Cavill. Cavill, I get it right?
Is it Cavill?
Cavill. Thank you. I think it's Cavill. British names sometimes. And I'm sure just by everyone's seen it there, and I've heard a lot of both for and against the movie, and I see both sides of the argument. My for it was, I think they did a really good job with finally, after a while, getting to the level of seeing a real Superman level fight go on. Although it did go on.
It went on a bit.
On.
I zoned out, and I didn't realize I was doing it until they stopped fighting. And I went back into consciousness.
I didn't zone out on it, but it was starting to get a bit pretty much repetitive of basically just how many times can you see someone get punched and go into a building and then come back out of the building and punch the other person and they go into a building, or they both punch each other and the shockwave shatters part of the building. I mean, it's like watching a live action version of Dragon Ball Z.
And yes, you could say that it was a fight between Zod and Superman. This is a incredible superhuman fight. But they did the same kind of deal in Superman 2 with Christopher Reeve and Terrence Stamp playing Zod. And they fought. Of course, they didn't have the special effects to do a fight at this level, but they didn't need to. Because Terrence Stamp is a complete badass. And he has the presence and the charisma so that you actually believe that if this guy really had the chance, he could smush Superman into itty-bitty little Superman smithereens. It was like Terrence Stamp standing next to Christopher Reeve. It was like man-boy. Superman was a little boy who didn't know a lot, not his fault. His entire civilization had been destroyed, even though he still had his intelligence crystals that tells him some stuff, but still, it was still a bit of man-boy there.
But that's how it fell in, and I like what you say that, because I kind of had the same feeling there with the Man of Steel. But Henry did pretty good at playing, being British, but he was basically playing a Midwestern farm boy, raised on very at-home values and just not sure what to do with his powers and stuff. He didn't have in his head, I'm going to throw on a funky costume with a cape and go around saving people. He was trying to figure things out himself. Whereas Zod, in both versions, was a general that was used to being in charge and used to telling other people what to do, used to giving that presence that they were one in charge, and they're the reason that they should be the one giving the calls. So both actors did a really good job of portraying that type of Zod, and in both cases it did have a man-boy type feel, like basically Kal-El was being the upstart to Zod, whereas Zod should have been being listened to. At least that's what he looked at.
And it was, I will give Man of Steel credit, especially with the Russell Crowe.
Yeah, Marlon Brando was a good Jor-El.
Yes, he was.
He needs to watch out because Russell Crowe, I think, is aiming for his title.
Well, especially seeing the interactions between Jor-El and Zod, it was a nice little kind of prequel story there at the beginning of the movie, and it explained a little bit more in depth exactly what happened, and at least that they had actually known about, because it makes more sense that this advanced civilization will know when their planet's about to explode.
Admittedly, in the first movie, you have to admit, it was kind of, they're supposed to be like almost a utopian society, very intellectual, but Jor-El's the only one that figured this one out. In the animated series, they blamed it on Brainiac, but at least that's a little bit better, Let's blame it on the mechanical computer machine that runs Krypton here. Okay, maybe we can buy that one too. This time, it worked a little differently, and I think a little bit more believably. Um, that felt a bit right, and definitely the interaction between Zod and Jor-El gave two very good sides to basically their viewpoint on things, but they were also kind of still stuck. Jor-El the scientist, Zod the warrior, and neither one was really good at being able to come out of their roles.
And really, if the entire movie had just been basically Russell Crowe and the guy who played Zod, I'm not sure actually is his real name, but just their interactions and just what came up to that, just basically an entire prequel movie with them happy. I would have been happy as a clam, I think.
Maybe them younger and fighting together.
Yeah, seeing that a bit.
Kind of like what they tried to do with the whole X-Men First Class, seeing Xavier and Magneto together.
I mean, I think it kind of, at least in my mind, it kind of sabotaged itself when you have that level of guys going against each other and not just physically but mentally fighting each other and trying to find the best for each other's families and what they think is their vision of Krypton and what needs to happen. And that at the beginning of the movie, and then going into the Superman story and Henry being Superman and that versus that, it just doesn't feel as good. I don't feel the execution of it as well. I thought Amy Adams, though, as Lois Lane, perfect. Absolutely perfect. I've never seen an actress click for Lois Lane like Amy Adams did. Was not a big fan of Margot Kidder. She didn't really mesh with me as far as playing Lois Lane. I felt a bit foreign to see her in that part. The rightness of it was weird. Kate Bosworth in Superman Returns, she was good. She's a good actress, but she just wasn't quite a Lois Lane character, and I didn't really realize how much she wasn't until I really saw Amy Adams. Terry Hatcher was all right in Lois and Clark as well, but Amy Adams, that woman is Lois Lane. I mean, really, she can do anything, but she is Lois Lane.
I especially like him. She was everything you'd expect and more in an investigative reporter today, and I especially like the fact that she figured out who Clark was pretty much right in the beginning. There was we're not leading into this whole thing of, oh, let's put the sunglasses on and I'm going to fool the best investigative reporter of the century around here.
Hey, he had contacts too. He had color contacts. Superman Returns, when he's Clark Kent, he's got brown eyes, and when he's Superman, he's got blue. Okay? I'll give you that one.
But yeah, I mean that one was kind of a worn out storyline even in the comic books there. And it was just nice to have her start in, because if nothing else, that just put in, it's like, this is not a woman that's going to be dissuaded, put off, or tricked easily. She has a mind of her own and had the dogged pursuit of a proper reporter and easily stood up. Basically what you wanted was, as her, Lois Lane was to be basically an equal to Clark. Someone that he didn't look down upon in any way, that he would respect as an equal. And that's what she did.
And it'll be interesting to see them. I know that the next Man of Steel has already been greenlit. So,
of course, confirmed she's coming back for Lois?
Yes.
Yeah. Smart. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the sequel period, but yeah, their relationship, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
And it was a bit interesting and kind of nice, not really necessary to the story, but it was nice to basically have Jor-El's kind of artificial bit of him be able to kind of see Lois, and Lois as Amy Adams, and kind of give his little approval that, like, son, you better not let this one get away. That's the real deal right there.
Actually, that's another one up there, because all Marlon Brando got to be was basically a hologram giving his wisdom to Clark or Kal-El back in the movies.
And what a whore with his information, man. Kevin Spacey comes in there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what's up with that?
Yeah, and he puts the crystal in it, and he just like, oh, anyone can just put your crystals in your slots, and you'll just give them the information, huh?
Isometrics! We have that technology. You're telling me they can't put isometrics in the crystals? You're right. Absolutely right. I mean, this puts in the discussion, because I have ragged on Superman Returns in certain aspects. Don't get me wrong. It was a beautifully done sequel to the other ones. Bryan Singer he lovingly put that movie together, and Brandon
Ralph, perfect as Superman.
Yeah, no argument there. When I just saw him, I thought they had cloned Christopher Reeves. Honestly,
he did an incredible job as Clark and Superman, which is difficult to do. Good at both of those.
My issue mostly was the pacing. The movie felt like it crawled a lot, and it was difficult to keep with. That's it though. That was my big thing. I didn't so much
feel the crawling.
Yeah.
I hear that so many times. It didn't seem to crawl. It seemed to be a bit better paced. It didn't have so much of the action, which is probably why they put so much in Man of Steel. But story-wise, and of course continuing from 1 and 2, it made sense to me, and I liked it.
That was my only real complaint with the Superman Returns. But Man of Steel, maybe it went the other way. Maybe it did slightly go into let's put a little too much action into it. And I certainly didn't have the feel of like the long battle you get in like Avengers, because since you have 6 different combatants facing against you, you get a bit more variety, more dynamicness. When a Superman fight, basically it's like watching a Dragon Ball Z. It's
Smash.
Yeah, you just ping pong ball into buildings and stuff. And after you've seen the 3rd skyscraper starting to fall over, it's like, okay, we've seen it. And you actually start feeling sorry for Metropolis, because it's like, honestly, there are a couple points during the movie I'm sitting there going, you should be being a bit more careful, I know he's trying to stop Zod and everything here, but it almost seemed like almost a flagrant disregard for the fact that there were literally millions of people in the city as the fight was going on. Maybe that'll be touched upon in the movie. I mean, it's his first real battle, first time really extending his powers like that, so we can forgive him.
Maybe behind the scenes there was some kind of evacuation.
But
I have no idea. I mean, it just seemed to be just gratuitous action and buildings falling down just for the sake of it. We saw Pacific Rim, though, and that was a different kind of, well, not a different kind of gratuitous action. It didn't feel like it was gratuitous. It felt like it was necessary, especially with the anime references in that.
But even then, they were a little bit smaller with it. People had time to evacuate. Not everybody got there. Yeah. We could see that there was some victims when the monsters attacked the cities, but the attempts were made. There was some warning. People would try to get into the shelters there, and they did have some of the fights, but I think that the fights would handle better in Pacific Rim. It just didn't go for as long. It felt like they figured out the point where we should be wrapping up the fight. We've done this roller coaster ride.
No.
And far enough, and even the good part was that the biggest, longest, badass fight wasn't the finishing fight. It was like the 3rd battle in the movie. There was really the big, proper Godzilla leveling Tokyo level type fight, and then the last one was a climax fight, but it didn't last as long, but it was still very good. But it just had a whole totally different feel to it.
Yeah. So. It was a bit predictable, of course. A movie like that is going to be. That's not his fault.
The main question should come along here.
It's the nature of it, the beast.
The main thing you should ask yourself, though, is, was it worth almost 2 hours of sitting there watching it?
Yeah,
definitely.
I think so.
And you got what you wanted out of it, and then some. So, but we could rant on about Pacific Rim for a while. Yeah. There's some more there. So, that's...
Yay, Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
Yay, Ron Perlman!
He had a wonderful part in there. Small little part, but it was just great seeing him in there. And he did fantastic with that little part.
Okay. Now, the next one we're basically going to be ranting because we agree on it, mostly. Because it's going to be Doctor Who's basically picks for the 12th Doctor.
I know, anyone who's followed up as soon as Matt put out the announcement that he wasn't going to come back as the 11th Doctor, the 12th Doctor, come back and staying as the 11th Doctor. Yeah, just try to keep track of them all, okay? Was followed up quickly by that being shared all across Facebook. I'm surprised the servers didn't melt down from that.
They probably did.
As well as basically multitudes of people putting up their wish list of who they think should be, could be, or would be the 12th Doctor. Some of them were basically just wish list. We knew there was absolutely no chance that these actors were going to be able to do it.
Helen Mirren.
Although she stated that she would love to, she just, too much already on her plate to believe that she's actually going to have time to do a series like that. And some people will just wish fulfillment. But, so we decided.
And some people just name whoever that they know of that's British. Just, oh, that guy, he sounds a bit Britishy. We'll put him in as Doctor Who. It'd be great. Yeah. Not everyone can do Doctor Who. You can't, and even if you think he's going to do a good job, he or she is going to do a fantastic job, you don't really know until they're actually playing it and doing the role. And the same for the companions as well. Although the Doctor, I'm not really sure if the Doctor has a easier or harder job being the Doctor than the companion has being the companion.
That's an interesting way of putting it, because you really can't have one without the other. The Doctor can bring something to it depending on the actor that's playing the part, but you need the companion because each companion brings out something a little different in each one. A really good example would be following the 10th Doctor, David Tennant's roll through. His interactions with each of the 3 companions he had gave opportunities to show different sides of his character, but also a fresh person on the other side. It's difficult because you get the tile actor here, he's the Doctor and everything. You gotta find a companion that can. It doesn't have to overshadow him, but it's gotta complement, either filling in the spaces that he does it, or bring out certain things in him, or he brings out certain things in the companion that highlight their character. We're getting to know the companion as much as we are relearning about the Doctor.
And probably none of the picks that we have will actually be chosen. Probably it would be someone that we've never heard of before, just like Matt Smith. And Genoese Coleman, no one knew about her, at least in America. Oops, excuse me. Before she was announced as the companion. So probably whoever is to be announced, no one's going to know who they are, and we're all going to hate him. Or her. We're going to be like, who is this dingwad just walking in here, taking over the TARDIS? How dare they?
Well, we said the same thing.
But then we'll see them.
I said the same thing, though, when David gave up the part for Matt Smith to jump in. And I was a bit of a Matt Smith hater in the very beginning. Even though I told myself I tried not to. I knew a lot of my misgivings were just simply because I was not liking Matt because he was not David Tennant. And I was glad to be proven wrong. But I did want to give him the chance, though. Don't get me wrong.
Well, you can't just stop watching Doctor Who.
Definitely never.
Once you start, you just can't stop. It's just not a thing.
It never got that far that I ever felt that need. Was like, I'm never going to watch this again. But I was pleased to see his evolution as a character, and Matt Smith really did make the role of the Doctor his own. So we give our salute to him. 2 more episodes, and his legacy is done, and we meet the new one. So we have our own wish fulfillment, though, and we have our own list of names of people that we would like to, and the same thing, we have varying levels of
realisticness.
Realisticness as to some of these people, but some of them are actually possibilities. So,
or at least possibilities in our minds.
Okay. So we'll start off with, let's say, our least realistic right now. Richard Armitage.
He's badass.
And he's already up as a fan favorite up there. I mean, lots of people would love to see him playing the part. He can do dark and moody in his sleep. He doesn't even have to try.
He can do Christopher Eccleston, but I've seen interviews with him talking about The Hobbit where he's just a cool, funny kind of guy. And he definitely has a sense of humor.
Which might surprise some people who only are used to him being kind of the dark and brooding type.
Yeah.
He's very talented, and part of me would love to see him in the TARDIS, see the type of Doctor that he'd bring to it.
And it would be kind of an old school return. After the Christmas special, and after the 2 Doctors, David Tennant and Matt Smith, who were a bit more of goofy doctors, even with their dark side, they're not the Christopher Eccleston dark Doctor, and it would be, it would make sense to basically have a return to that, have a return to a dark kind of Doctor.
So, possibility, pretty low probability of him playing the part, but the ride we'd have with him running the TARDIS.
Yeah.
But keeping to possible but not necessarily realistic is this talk about David Tennant.
Before you move on, though,
Yes.
when we were basically coming up with a list of potential doctors, when the possibility of Richard Armitage came up, I couldn't help but picture him in the TARDIS, have that click, and then I thought about Jenna Louise Coleman, and would he have chemistry with her? Probably, and they need to have a baby. Jenna Louise Coleman and Richard Armitage, please have a baby, just for the sake of posterity and humanity. It would be fantastic. Just have families. Just, you guys would just be so awesome together. I can't help it. I don't generally fangirl out like that in that way, as far as these people need to get together and have children and procreate. But those two, it's just too fantastic in my head. It needs to be made into reality.
I can speak truthfully, she doesn't normally fangirl out like this, but when she fangirls, she fangirls. But speaking of that, was the talk about and rumors running around that David Tennant might be coming back and reprising the role. And before anyone wants to jump in, it's like, how can that be ridiculous and regenerating back in? Those that have watched the end of the series understand that the 11th Doctor is basically finished off with entering his own timeline. So technically, he's within his own timeline, and he exists and both not exist. He's become Schrodinger's cat, in a manner of speaking, right now. So, based on what happens after the 50th anniversary in the day, who knows which Doctor could potentially come back out again. So, high marks of creativity, because if they actually did pull a stunt like that and bring David Tennant back, they could get away with it, and it would actually work. So, I applaud on that.
Anything could happen. The David Tennant that's half Donna, that's with Billy Piper on the island, could die. Not on the island, on the planet. Could die.
Alternate
something could
reality.
happen to him. Yeah. Hish posh. Something could have happened to him. So Matt Smith at the end of the Christmas special could go off with Billy Piper in the alternate reality, and they can be together, and while Jenna Louise can go off with David Tennant. I'm just saying.
Companion swapping?
Well, Matt Smith has worked with Billy before, so I'm just saying. Just to have them have their own happy ending, so Matt Smith isn't going off alone. He'll be with Billy, at least. He'll be with Rose.
But, in the course of things, though, I was supposed to say it's still a low probability. It could be played off, and it could be really good, but then it would also feel like we're not stepping forward. We know the type of Doctor that they would be playing, so he wouldn't be bringing much anything new to it. He'd be fantastic. He'd be great for fun. And it would be kind of interesting to see him playing opposite Jenna Louise Coleman.
Yeah.
You got used to her dealing with the 11th Doctor, but seeing how she play opposite the 10th
She could get him into so much trouble. Usually companions get people out, and usually she does, but she could also just get him into so much trouble.
Yeah. So definitely interesting to watch, but I would still hope that we bring in a new actor. So on to some of our other wish lists.
Should we do Richard Coyle?
Why not?
Okay.
Richard Coyle is an actor. Basically, as far as I know, his first big gig that we know of was playing in a series called Coupling that was actually written by Stephen Moffat, and he played a character called Jeff Murdoch.
He is a nut.
That's being nice.
And he's got the crazy hair for a doctor, so it's perfect.
But he also has played a role on the American TV series of Covert Affairs as a very suave bad guy, very good, and very serious. So, interesting enough, he's got both sides down. He can be wacky, weird, charming, and dangerous, and he could do all that at the same time. I mean, that isn't a good recipe for a doctor. I don't know what it is.
I think he could do an incredibly good job.
He would be my particular favorite, actually, right now, as far as who I'd like to see step up as a doctor and who has a realistic chance of being called up to do it. I'm all for Richard Coyle.
He's got the manic energy. He's got the dark seriousness side to him when he really wants to or needs to do that. And he's just a nut. And he is someone that's a nut, and you can't take your eyes off of him. Jeff in Coupling is the center of that freaking show. When the actor, I keep even calling the actor Jeff, but when he left the show, the last season of it, it just was not the same at all. They tried to replace him with another actor. It's just, where's Jeff? Where the frick are these guys? These guys are boring when he's not around. Why do they keep talking? Bring him back!
Even when he was playing Jeff Murdoch, I'd say there are many times when he'd have his little moments of talking that were equal parts insanity mixed with almost sage wisdom.
A bit there.
And again, that just spells the Doctor and no end of things. So, if by some chance, I don't believe it for a second really that they haven't already picked him, but if they haven't picked him, if you're listening to this, Stephen, Richard Coyle, check him up. You know him. You've worked with him
before.
You know?
And Jack Davenport, who was also on Coupling, has been listed as a possibility too. I think he would also do a good job. It's just that Richard Coyle, I think, blows him out of the water in this.
Yeah. Davenport was a good actor, and he has the same thing. He can be sarcastic, but
and befuddled.
I see him more as like being more like the Colin Baker Sixth Doctor, kind of arrogant, putting people down type thing. But also on Coupling, he was still mostly the straight man to Jeff's wild man there. Davenport would say the lines that would allow Jeff to go off on some incredible statement that you're like, I'm going to regret asking this, but what happened?
But you can't help but ask him. You don't want to know the answers, but you can't help it because you need to see Jeff do his Jeff thing.
Okay, I'll let you speak on yours, though.
Okay.
Mr. Crayons.
Oh, Tom.
For those who aren't familiar with it, you must watch more with Josh Whedon.
Uh-huh.
He played Topher on Dollhouse. He was, I forget the his name in the show, but in the movie of Cabin in the Woods, I forget his name, but he
Pothead.
Yeah, he was the Reefer Head with the incredible bong.
I don't remember his name either. We need to watch that one again.
We must.
Yeah. But yeah, and he's also in the new Much Ado About Nothing film, which has not come to our part of Washington. I'm upset about this. I need to see this movie. I need to see all of the Whedon people in there, especially Nathan Fillion playing Dogberry. It's gonna happen.
But I passed on to you because you're an incredible fan of Fawn there.
Yeah, really seeing him play Topher is pretty much him playing the Doctor. That's like an audition tape that he could just send over to Moffat, maybe. And yes, he is American. I still think he could do an incredible job, and really that wins over happened to be British.
Considering how many British actors play American parts these days, maybe we should look at the fact that maybe it's not against it. Maybe we find a talented American actor that can do it. I mean, okay, just point out here. Okay, Hugh Laurie playing House. For those that don't know, and I know some people don't know this, Hugh Laurie is British.
Well, him and Stephen Fry are two peas in a pod.
Yeah. Well, I know that someone actually posted up somewhere about Hugh Laurie playing the part, but then said he wouldn't get it because he's not British. Hugh Laurie is British. He just puts on an American accent when he plays the part of House. So,
See Jews and Worcester, guys.
Henry Cavill, we just talked about for Superman. He's British. Played Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Midwesterner from Kansas. Just saying.
Oh, yeah. And also Damian Lewis, who is another pick to be the Doctor. I think he would do an incredible job. He's in Homeland right now. I believe he's actually playing an American in that. I haven't watched it. Shame on me. But I've heard a lot of good things, and I've seen Damien in other shows, including Life, which was in America. And again, he played an American in that as well. But he just has that incredibly mix of, you can't take your eyes off of him while he's doing his crazy thing, but he also has his dark side. And he can just, what he dealt with in the series of Life, and also seeing him in an adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing too, with Billy Piper, nonetheless. Ooh, that might be a connection there.
Because, know about that.
Well, Billy Piper knew Matt Smith before he was picked to play the Doctor. They played in some movies together. So maybe someone Louise Coleman knows will play the Doctor that we've never heard of. Maybe that's how they kind of dig for them.
You never know. I did see a little bit. I mean, I haven't seen really Life, but she introduced me to that and at least his character. So definitely someone that could be interesting, intriguing.
And he's talented as all get out.
Oh, yeah.
But then, of course, he's
talented.
very well known, and they don't tend to choose people that are really well known to play the Doctor, except for Christopher Eccleston. But that was then basically revamping the Doctor Who and making it, redoing it again in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted it to get caught on.
But maybe we'll be wrong this time. Well, hopefully whoever they pick will be someone that, like they did, they figured out that Matt Smith was everything they were looking for in the Doctor at their time.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever the next lucky person's going to be, will bring their own touch and their own feel, and they'll pick someone that will be at least a fun Doctor to watch for another 2 or 3 years. I was pointing out, I've been saying this one for a while. Those that watched the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the one who played Ford Prefect,
Mos Def.
When I think back to it, I realized he basically was playing a version of the Doctor in so many ways. He was just really fantastic.
Martin Freeman was his companion. That's really how I look at it. The entire movie just revolves around him.
He'd be fantastic, and he did such a wonderful job in there, and I don't care what anyone says about him. If they announced that Mos Def was playing the Doctor, I would be no end happy at this point. I don't care if he's not British, right?
No, he's American.
Yeah, I don't care that he's British, that he's African American. Bring it!
He'd be absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
He's got the Greek cred too.
Mm-hmm. But I think that finishes up our wish list of people.
Yeah.
So I think that we should wrap this one up here.
Mm-hmm.
We'll figure out our next thing we're going to rant and discuss on next time.
Yes.